We are in our second segment here, and of course, we do want to take a look at what you're waking up to as far as the newspapers are concerned. And I do want to take you through the headlines on these newspapers before I introduce my guests this morning. And we start with the People Daily. The People Daily top story on the People Daily says Rigiji hangs on thin thread. Of course, marooned judges set to rule on whether conservatory orders that prevented Kindiki from being sworn in as the new deputy president should be lifted. This is a story on page 4 of the People Daily. Another story making headlines on this particular newspaper is Ruto MPs oppose term extension bill. This is a story on page 3. And of course, you can see a photo of them there, addressing the media. We have Jen Kagiri, who is a member of parliament, Laikipia County, and also Kishumu Githinji, and their Buri counterpart, that is Rindikiri Mugambi, addressing journalists at parliament buildings yesterday when they rejected a bill meant to extend the presidential term limit. Of course, we'll also be getting into the details of that in our show this particular morning. National exams nurturing them young. A teacher supervises pupils at Mushinda Primary School in Elbago, Nakuru County during the ongoing primary school education assessment KPSEA exams yesterday. Of course, this is also a story that is making headlines on the People Daily. Let us also take a look at the Standard and what you're waking up to as far as the Standard is concerned. And our top story on the Standard is that you are out. DP told as he goes for Ruto, a bruising battle. The state tells court Rigathi Gachagua ceased being deputy president on the day he was impeached and should pave way for the swearing in of Kithure Kindiki, even as the impeached DP accuses President Ruto, now Parliament and state agencies, of flouting the law during his removal proceedings. This is a story on page 4 and 5 of the Standard. And also 224,000, this is the number of Kenyans who volunteered their views in Rigathi Gachagua's impeachment, according to National Assembly lawyer, that is Benson Milimo. This has, of course, played out in the corridors of justice yesterday. And we also have a big win for Ruto as court retains Finance Act 2023. A story on page 6, another story that will be forming the basis of our conversation this particular morning as we take a look at the direction of the nation. Now, who wanted HR guru Ayeko dead and why? Now, slain Wells Fargo human resource manager Willis Ayeko was a lifeline for many, known for his philanthropy, leading an investigation into 94 million heist that involved staff. This is a story on page 3 of the Standard. Our learning universities paralyzed as dawns a strike. A story on page 8 of this particular newspaper. And on matter sports, it is this man Ten Hag's successor? Of course, a story on page 31 of the Standard. Another story on the business world that is making headlines on the Standard newspaper is Kenya Power from loss to 30 billion profit. A story on page 14. And also focus shifts to KCSE as grade 6 test closes. A story on page 9 of the Standard. And let us also take a look at what's making headlines in the world. Is a story on page 16 says win and lose irony of U.S. poll system. Of course, you can get details of these particular stories on these newspapers. Let us take a look at what you're waking up to as far as the Daily Nation is concerned. And I want us to take a look at, top story on the Daily Nation is, of course, outrage over outrage over police phone spy expose. Now, human rights are shocked. Shock greeted the exclusive Nation investigative story, of course, that was done yesterday, revealing how police have been colluding with telecom firms to irregularly access call data and location records that are used to track and capture suspects, with the U.S. denouncing the abuse of mobile phone users' right to privacy. A story on page 4. And let me just take you through that so that we get to understand what exactly we are talking about. Now, outrage greeted the exclusive nation investigative story that revealed how police have been colluding with the telecommunication firms to irregularly access call data and location records that are used to track and capture suspects. United States Ambassador to Kenya, Meg Whitman, denounced the abuse of mobile phone users' right to privacy, while the Kenya Human Rights Commission said the expose revealed the telcos' complicity in aiding and covering up abductions and killings by rogue security agencies. Now, the laws on privacy and rule of law around rights of a private citizen need to be respected in democracy, said Whitman in a media interview in Kitale yesterday. Now, during a meeting with local civil society groups, she affirmed the U.S. government's commitment to work with both the Kenyan government and civil society to uphold the rights of all individuals. Now, the U.S. envoy called for action against perpetrators of human rights violations, especially during peaceful protests. Of course, this is a story on page 4 of the Daily Nation. Another story making headlines on the Daily Nation is Gachagua goes after Kindiki legal battle. The impeached deputy president has trained his guns on his designated successor, saying he is ineligible because he was not a member of the United Democratic Alliance Party for 3 months prior to his nomination. Page 7 of the Daily Nation. On the crime front, is main suspect in Wells Fargo HR boss murder went on a spending spree. Now, Victor Ouma Okoth was arrested on Monday in connection to the killing of Willis Ayeko, whose body was found on October 23rd, 3 days after he went missing in Siaya. On matters diplomacy, why spy chiefs are trooping to Kenya, President William Ruto has hosted Central Intelligence Agency Director William Burns twice this year. The latest on Monday, a week after Britain's M16 chief Richard Moore also came calling. This is a story on page 10. And chief crisis, this is what's ailing new health scheme, doctors say amid protests Spain. Nakuru-based surgeon has painted a grave picture of the state of healthcare, with hundreds of patients unable to access treatment due to the chaotic transition from the National Health Insurance Fund to the Social Health Insurance Fund. A story on page 2 of the Daily Nation. Another story making headlines is, of course, the Apex Court Reinstates Finance Act 2023. Now, the National Treasury has scored a big win after the Supreme Court overturned the nullification of the Finance Act 2023, allowing the government to continue collecting taxes using the laws. Now, a full bench of the top court ruled that Parliament adhered to the required legislative process of public participation and concurrence when enacting the laws. This is a story on page 6 of the Daily Nation. And of course, I want to introduce my guest here in studio. Seated next to me is, of course, Honorable Frederick Kikana, Member of Parliament Shinyalu. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you so much.
The basic question that people normally ask ni ground inasema aje? What are people say?
Ground iko sawa.
But then nimetumwa nikusalimie. Kuna mtu alinitumia message akaniambia say hi Shesia. It was actually in Luya Shesia Kikana. Umesalimika?
Asante sana, nimepokea salamu.
Okay, shukran sana. Thank you so much for making time. Of course, at the center, we have Senator Gloria Oroba. Thank you so much for always honoring these calls. I know. Thank you so much for coming.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
How have you been?
I've been well.
All right. Of course, and Honorable Robert Basil, Mheshimiwa.
Sema.
Ground iko sawa?
Kwangu iko sawa.
Taifa lakini?
No, all is well. Of course, maisha ni ngumu.
Okay.
I know people are still complaining.
Yeah.
And there's so many, particularly on the new changes, hii mambo ya health. From what we refer as NHIF to SHA, SHIF. These things are not working.
Okay.
So every day unaenda ambie Ruto arudishe NHIF.
Okay, maybe ni communication iko mahali inakosa. I think the last time we had a conversation with Senator Gloria said that there's something to do with communication, because when you look at it, there are things that are there that are quite well.
Yeah, but it's not being accepted by the hospitals. Okay. That's what the problem is.
Right.
So you go with that card, then the healthy facility, they tell you, we are sorry.
We can't accept this.
Pay cash.
Okay.
And then, you know, the poor person whose hope is on this particular card. Once you are told you pay cash and you don't have the cash, definitely that is denying you access to health services. Yes.
Right, a lot to talk about, especially on that particular front. But I want us to start on what the Daily Nation has on their front page as outrage over police phone spying expose. Now, telcos have been helping to cover up abductions, killings committed by rogue agencies. And of course, this is the United States envoy that's actually condemning this, what we'll call an investigative piece by the Daily Nation. And the cases of abductions in the country have, we've been able to experience that broad daylight abductions actually happening ever since the Gen Z protests. It's not something new. Let me start with you, Honorable Frederick. What do you make of this?
Thank you so much. Once again, I want to appreciate your invitation and also to thank the many, many Kenyans for the overwhelming support they give us in terms of advice, counsel, and many other forms of support. On this issue of police spying on people's mobile phones, I want to categorically say, as a firm believer in the rule of law, I don't support. I don't support. I believe that each and every Kenyan has got a right to privacy. Each and every Kenyan has to enjoy the full freedoms that have been well entrenched and enshrined in our constitution. And therefore, in as much as we appreciate the fact that there's various forms of intelligence gathering that need to take place in order to safeguard the interests of the country and secure the nation, the processes that are used for intelligence gathering should be in conformity to the rule of law. We need to move away from the so-called abductions and embrace normal arrests, where if you have broken the law, then you are dealt with in accordance to the provisions of our constitution.
Honorable Basil, let me throw this to you. We somehow are seeing cases of abductions on the rise, this, I think, to some extent, is not a legacy that President William Ruto would like to be associated with, because when he was campaigning and actually coming to office, he pronounced himself on this particular matter. But it doesn't seem to be going his way. I don't know. What do you say to this?
Abductions is actually against the law. And I don't know that you have the clip where Ruto was saying, "Will not allow abduction." That was 2020. That was 2021, But apparently, under his watch, people are disappearing. So it is so shocking, And I think it's important we uphold the law. Yes.
Honorable Gloria, abductions and killings committed by rogue agencies, we disbanded what we quote-unquote used to call a killer squad. But daylight abductions, in most cases you see on the news, people being abducted daily. Some turn up dead, some disappear for a minute, you have no idea where they are. And these cases, despite us talking about them, the government's coming out and saying, okay, nothing has been reported, the president pronouncing himself on the matter. They seem to be we still get to experience this every now and then. And right now there's an expose that says, okay, it seems like telcos have been helping when it comes to aiding these abductions that we're actually seeing in the country.
So I want to comment on the issue of the spying using your phones. That falls under data protection. Yeah. And I hate to be the one that says this, but remember when we had Safaricom saying something like, we are re-registering SIM cards, right? And they said, come with biometrics and, we'll take pictures and everything. And I questioned that whole process, and I asked in the floor of the House through a statement, what do you need certain information for? Because if it's about knowing who's using the phone, an ID is sufficient. By the time you're doing biometrics and photos and all sorts of other things, there needed to be an explanation. Now, years down the line, I think maybe 2 years down the line, it shows that there must have been some connection. But you see, I also want to say that Kenyans were very good at something. We call out only on one side. Like now, we are calling out, which is wrong, that there is obviously an attempt to infringe on the privacy of Kenyans through telecom companies. obviously.
Yeah.
And that can be traced as far back as the re-registration of SIM cards. But we also don't call out the nonsense that we are doing, like sharing other people's data. So I want to say this. It is wrong for Safaricom and any other agency to infringe on the privacy of people and use that data for purposes other than what it has been mandated to do as a data processor. But it's also wrong for Kenyans to go out there and say, Salimia Nani, I'm sharing Nani's number, and what. So we have to call it on both sides. That is my take on that particular. Because if you are going to have a law, the law must cut across to everyone. You know, so that's what I would say about that. And I'm very, very wary. I mean, I have a Safaricom line. Even when my line was shared, I actually went to Safaricom. I wrote to them and I was like, outside from the people who have this number, I feel as though your employees, because at that time, members of parliament, it's like someone went and said, Ndio hawa, here is the list. And that was from internal. So you have to call out all the nonsense from both sides.
All right.
When it comes to abductions, I have one question. Mheshimiwa here has said people should be arrested, normal arrest. And when he said that, I wanted to ask him, what's a normal arrest? Because often, even a normal arrest in this day and era, for purposes of trending and hashtags, is an abduction. Yes. Someone comes to you, it identifies themselves and says that I'm a police officer, tunakuchukua, beba vitu zako, blah, 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 blah. You are taken, you are asked, kuna mtu tapigia simu, unaambiwa upige simu. The moment you enter that car, the family, whoever is left, oh, so and so has been abducted. So I also want maybe me, I don't understand what a normal arrest. Maybe Kenyans should also be sensitized. What is a normal arrest? And what is abduction? Because you find, even when someone, we've even been told, this person is in Kamkunji. Yeah. And this person is in Kamkunji waiting, pending charges. You go to the Mtandao, hashtag, abductions and killings, you know. So, again, I want to ask, maybe, sensitize us on what a normal arrest is, because sometimes a normal arrest also is being called as abductions. But I have to also say that for sure, there are people who've been abducted. Not that I'm saying the abduction does not exist, it's there. But also, can we just be honest with ourselves as Kenyans? So do you want the police to work or not? Because when it is you, like now we are seeing the issue of femicide, right? Over 500 women have been murdered. This should actually be a national disaster. You remember when HIV and AIDS was under health and it was just a small issue, or it's just a medicinal issue, we'll deal with it under the Ministry of Health. And then we realized, no, our country is being wiped out by HIV and AIDS. So it became a national disaster. When you have over 500 women being murdered because of intimate partner violence and all this GBV, let me ask you, those people who are murdering those women, what is a normal arrest for those people? Should we run hashtags for those people that they've been abducted? Okay. So let us be honest also to us, because we don't want to run a society where we don't have where it's like a jungle. Whoever who mwenye nguvu mpishe huyu kama we also want the police to be left to do their work to the extent that is legal.
And I think we get into that. What will be a normal arrest from where we stand?
That's the question. Yeah.
Because from what Senator Gloria is saying, because in most cases when somebody is arrested, we get to see those particular hashtags actually trending on Twitter, free so and so, free so and so, and not to say that from what she said that. Abductions are not happening because some people, we have no idea where they are. We are running hashtags of free so and so, and they are not produced in court. There's no data of whether they've been arrested or not. We don't have that. But then again, how do we define a normal arrest and an abduction?
Okay, let me go first because Mheshimiwa directed the question directly to me. I want to clarify that to my understanding, a normal arrest would involve a policeman or a policewoman apprehending a suspect, taking him to a police station, of course producing what we will call a charge sheet, where the arrest is entered in an occurrence book, and then this suspect is explained to on why he has been arrested and be given an opportunity of legal representation, which is part of the rights of Kenyans in the Constitution. And then once that is done, the Constitution demands that suspects should be produced in court within 24 hours of arrest. Mm-hmm. That is what I term as a normal arrest, and that is the understanding of many Kenyans. Okay. But of course, I appreciate the fact that there are many lawbreakers, there are many mischievous people out there who would want to sensationalize even what I have explained as a normal arrest, mm-hmm. so as to attract either public sympathy, mm-hmm. or to derail the rule of law and justice by terming it as an abduction. Okay.
Honorable Basil, where do we draw the line between arbitrary arrest that we normally witness and, you say, okay, so why was this person arrested? He's not been produced in court. There's no, investigations, proper investigations being done in order to be able to link them to something. We've been able to see that, especially people that are a little bit critics of the government, to some extent, somebody will argue that this is one way of using this to intimidate them so that they get to be silenced.
Yeah, you see, like what my brothers just mentioned, the abductions basically disappear. You are never apprehended in court. Sometimes even your family or your close relatives, they don't know your whereabouts. Mm-hmm. There are no charge sheets. You don't even know exactly where you are taken to. And even there are some hearsays of torture, you know. You are taken to those dark cells, someone, you are tortured, and basically it's, I mean, you are mistreated, if I could use that word. And that is why this issue of abductions, if you remember from 1990, it was a common phenomenon. Many Kenyans, particularly politicians who were against the ruling government by that time, used to go through what we used to refer as Nyati House, the dark cells. And that is what is being said to be like re-emanching, where Kenyans are taken, you are taken away from your home or even in the streets, you are put in those Subarus, you disappear for quite a number of days, no one knows where you are, you're not allowed to have legal representation, there is no attorney. That opportunity to have an attorney to represent you in court is not given to you. They violate the 24-hour apprehension in court, All this amounts to abductions. And then the worst thing is where someone is found dead. Okay. So when you hear of abductions and killings, they tend to be...
So if you are taken by quote-unquote officers,
yes.
If you are apprehended,
yes.
And you are not produced in court, maybe... So
you see, for example...
Do we then qualify that as an abduction?
Yes, because you see, I will give you an example.
Can I interject there? This I learned through a situation I was handling. You remember we had that issue of that Nigerian gentleman. Why am I calling him a gentleman? Of that Nigerian who was beating the woman on the wheelchair on the CCTV. And I was handling that case. When he was apprehended by the police, when they finally found him, I also had the opinion of it's a 24-hour thing, and after that you're produced in court. And I was informed that is now for certain, there is apparently for certain crimes or things like that. When it comes for issues that deal with, for instance, foreigners, deportation, and some certain line of crime, then you are apprehended. You can be kept for as long as they need to do investigations. And in fact, for that gentleman, they kept him, I think, in the police custody for 4 to 5 days, I think. And then they directly deported him from police custody without having going to court. All right. So then I was asking, because I was like, isn't this against the law and everything? So we also need sensitization, because you see, I'm a legislator, and I'm still trying to learn what is within the scope of the police and things like that. But as Mheshimiwa has said, you've been arrested, that is, you've been apprehended, you've been taken to an actual physical police station. that you have been, a charge sheet has been produced, or within those 24 hours is being produced, and then you come to Twitter and run a hashtag of being abducted.
Okay,
How?
we want to take a break.
If you look at some...
we have cases of people missing. Like now, so we don't know. They are not in a physical police station.
All right.
They are not. So that is a case of, okay, have they been abducted? Are they missing? What is happening?
All right, let me take a break. Of course, we come back, we talk a little bit more on that. And yes, get into a conversation on which way this nation is actually taking in terms of matters direction, from matters politics all the way to social issues and the economy. We take a break. We'll be back in a moment. Continue engaging us on our socials at K24 TV across social media platforms.
Mr. DJ.
Lucky. When it comes to playing the best music videos, we've got you covered. K24 TV Mix Master. When it comes to a lineup of all the fresh DJs, we've got that too.